It can be really tricky to ask for accommodations if you have a disability that requires them at work. Hey everyone, I'm Emily, the Career Catalyst. This is a bit of a challenge if you just need some accommodations, especially in a new job. So we're just going to kind of walk through your process a little bit today. Now, to start off, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that companies that are over 15 people big in the US are required to abide by the ADA. And if you have a condition that's related directly to HIV, they're also required to do very specific things to meet your accommodations. The bad news is that everything else is much, much fuzzier. And so what you might run into is a couple of challenges to definitions of a disability and definitions of a reasonable accommodation. This is where it gets really weedy and thorny. And so if you are really looking for an accommodation, your best bet is going to be to enlist the help of a doctor or a psychologist, because those are the folks who are really going to help you advocate for your needs. Now, if you're in a position where you have accepted a new job and have asked for all the paperwork, got all signed and everything, then your best bet is really then to go talk to HR after you've been accepted. HR is the sort of body that's going to govern the reasonable accommodations for you. So go chat with them. They're not legally allowed to rescind an offer once it's been accepted. So your conversation with HR will really kind of walk them through the kinds of accommodations you need specifically. Where it gets really tricky is if you have a less notable, not less visible, less easy to understand accommodation requirement from HR. So for example, if you use a mobility device, or if you have a vision or hearing impairment, they sort of understand what that means and what your accommodation needs are likely to be. If you have kind of an invisible disability, perhaps anxiety, for instance, or really severe allergies, something like that, it's much harder for them to see that and understand what actions to take on it, which is why it's going to be so important to have that help from another professional to really help you advocate for it. So, for example, if you have an accommodation you need because you're on the autism spectrum, then you're going to really want to work with your care provider to spell out what those accommodations are and why you need them. If you just kind of go into HR and say, yeah, I need a quiet space, for instance, they're unlikely to say anything reasonable about it because it doesn't make sense to them, right? So spell it out a little bit. And if there is a device or a change to the physical space that you need, give them a sense of what it's likely to cost. This is going to mean some research on your end, and that does kind of stink. But the good news is once you understand that, it's pretty easy to move forward with it. So for instance, if you need a desk that's lower so that you can reach it, or if you need something like one of those screens that goes over your computer screen so you can read the type more easily. Something that records meetings, those kinds of things. Those are all pretty easy to find these days. And the good news is that they're really getting much more affordable. For mental health issues, it's a little bit bigger of a challenge to get HR to understand what those needs are and how they're going to work. So really spell out what's been effective for you in the past. If you're new to the world of work and you don't know what's effective, really think through what your best guess is for what's going to be effective. And really, in this case, you're going to want to enlist the help of a mental health professional to discuss what people in situations similar to yours have used for accommodations. There are some steps you can take if you get denied an accommodation. I think the easiest one is to reach out to your local ADA and have a conversation with them. They can help you frame things differently, and that's really probably going to be your strongest argument for your accommodation. Your initial reaction, of course, is going to be to get angry and to feel defensive. And please feel free to feel that way, but try not to bring that to HR because they're unlikely to respond positively to it because, people are people. However, what you can do is just reach out, as I said, to your local ADA. And if there's someone in your workplace, if you work at a very large organization, for instance, who does oversee that, you can loop that person in as well. The caution here, of course, is that HR and an ADA department within an organization and all of those kinds of places, their first line of duty really is to protect the company and not to protect the individual. And you're an individual. So I would recommend you talk with an external body first, someone like your care provider or your local ADA chapter, and figure out some other ways to accommodate for yourself. If there's something really simple that you need, for instance, you need time off work, maybe every other month or once a month to do something like get an injection or go to physical therapy or something like that, that's quite easy for them to accommodate. It would be very surprising if they were to say no to that, particularly if you tell them kind of what the situation is and why you need that. The harder accommodations are things like changes to the physical space, like perhaps a place where you can go and do your work in a quiet area, or a place that's less harshly lit, those kinds of things. So if you need one of those physical space accommodations, it may wind up being easier for you to ask for more of a hybrid work situation. You might get some pushback from your coworkers. People don't necessarily understand why you would be, say, leaving early every third Friday. And of course, it's not really any of their business, but if you feel that you can trust them, you are also absolutely welcome to let them know why you're doing that. And you don't have to. So really, that's your choice. The point is that when you need an accommodation, your best bet is to accept the job, get everything in writing, and then go have the discussion with HR. If you wind up at a very small company, though, do be aware that they have less of a legal obligation to honor those accommodations for you because they're so small. And there might be one person who, in addition to other roles, is also responsible for HR. That person is less likely to be up to date on the requirements. And so in those situations, you really will want to have a pretty thorough discussion with someone like a local ADA person and understand what the burden is on them for your accommodations. So if there's a larger set of things that you need, I would recommend you mostly seek work at places that are more than 15 people big so that they do have more of an obligation to accommodate you. I like to approach it in a very friendly way. Hi, HR. I'm starting on this date. Really excited to be here. Wanted to let you know that I am going to need some accommodations. Here's what they look like. If you have sort of a note from your doctor, which I know makes you feel like you're 7 years old, but if you do, that's a really nice thing to do for them because it really helps outline what the accommodations are that you're going to need. What you'll find is that fairly often you only need some of those accommodations sometimes. You don't need them necessarily every single day. So let them know kind of how you're going to know when you need those, or if it's something that's pretty regular, what those dates and times are. They might change. And in that case, you'll just go back to HR and have that discussion with them again. I think you'll find that generally people are pretty understanding of it. They understand why you need that. So do have a conversation with them about it. Reach out to someone like me if you need additional help or support, and best of luck with this process. I'll see you here soon.